The Draconian fleet entered human space without fear. 300 warships crossed the border in perfect formation, their hulls black and sharp, their weapons charged and ready. They had destroyed entire civilizations with less force than this. Earth was not expected to be different. To the Draconians, humanity was loud but weak. A young species, too emotional, too divided, dangerous in small fights, but fragile in real war. The plan was simple. Crush Earth, burn the shipyards, shatter the planet's defenses, leave survivors to spread the lesson. That was how the galaxy stayed in line. The fleet advanced. And then, nothing happened. No human patrols appeared. No warning signals. No defensive lines formed. Human space was quiet, almost empty. Stars burned softly. Planets followed their orbits. Trade lanes showed old, inactive traffic markers. Draconian commanders laughed. Earth had fled. That was the first mistake. Hours passed as the fleet moved deeper. Long-range sensors showed Earth ahead, blue and alive, untouched. No orbital guns powered up. No minefields triggered. No fleets rushed to intercept. Still nothing. The Draconian flagship sent a command signal ordering the final assault formations to prepare. The message never reached half the fleet. At first, officers blamed minor interference. Human space was known for unstable regions and strange electromagnetic noise. It meant nothing. Then a destroyer on the outer edge of the formation vanished. No explosion. No debris. One moment it was there, the next it was simply gone. The fleet halted. Sensors scanned every direction. Nothing appeared. No weapons fire. No spatial rupture. No energy spike. Another ship disappeared. Then another. Panic did not come all at once. It crept in slowly, like cold spreading through metal. Draconian admirals ordered emergency diagnostics. Communications were delayed by fractions of a second. Navigation data no longer agreed between ships. Formation spacing drifted without explanation. Still, Earth did nothing. No message. No signal. No response. The fleet tried to pull back. It could not. Engines fired, but space itself seemed to resist. Acceleration felt wrong, as if the ships were moving through thick water instead of vacuum. More vessels vanished. Entire squadrons blinked out without sound or light. The Draconian flagship activated its long-range distress beacon, broadcasting on every known frequency. No signal escaped. The galaxy did not hear a single scream. Far beyond human space, the Galactic Council watched in confusion. Draconian fleet markers vanished from star charts one by one. Not destroyed. Not damaged. Just removed. Council analysts waited for battle reports. None came. They waited for human victory messages. None came. Days passed. Earth remained silent. Scouts were dispatched toward human space, stopping well short of the border. Their sensors found no signs of war. No radiation scars. No wreckage fields. No dead worlds. Earth was still there. Intact. Calm. That was when fear began to spread. Fleets did not simply disappear. Not without evidence. Not without survivors. Not without noise. Something was wrong. Inside the containment zone, the last Draconian commander understood the truth too late. Human space was not empty. It was layered. Something vast surrounded the fleet now, invisible but absolute. Not a weapon firing. Not an enemy charging. A system closing. One by one, Draconian ships were isolated, separated from reality itself. Crews felt time stretch and fold. Some saw their own movements lag behind their thoughts. Others watched stars freeze in place outside their viewports. No alarms saved them. No heroics mattered. This was not a battle that could be fought. It was a process. On Earth, deep beneath the surface, human operators monitored the event in silence. Faces lit by soft screens. Hands steady. No cheering. No celebration. They had done this before. They would do it again. As the final Draconian warship vanished, Earth remained quiet. No broadcast followed. No explanation was offered. The galaxy was left with only questions. And the most terrifying one of all. If Earth could erase a fleet without a war, what else had humanity erased without anyone ever knowing? The first proof that something was wrong did not come from Earth. It came from a ghost. 3 days after the Draconian fleet vanished, a weak signal reached the Galactic Council's outer listening array. It was so faint that most automated systems ignored it. The signal did not carry a distress code. It did not request help. It was only data. Raw sensor fragments. Broken telemetry. Incomplete timestamps. And it was impossible. The signal originated from inside human space, from coordinates where nothing should exist anymore. Council analysts gathered in silence as the data was reconstructed. What appeared on the central display made no sense. It was not a message from a surviving ship. It was not a transmission sent deliberately. It was a recording, a fragment of reality, caught and leaked out by accident. The file began with draconian fleet telemetry, normal readings, stable formation, synchronized clocks. Then, slowly, the data began to fracture. Timestamps repeated themselves. Spatial coordinates folded inward. Ships appeared twice in the same position, then not at all. One analyst whispered the thought no one wanted to say aloud. This fleet didn't lose a battle, she said. It lost continuity. The recording showed a moment from the Draconian flagship's command deck. The officers were calm at first. Professional. Confidence. They issued orders, adjusted formations, and ran diagnostics. Then something changed. Orders began arriving after they were spoken. Tactical displays lagged behind reality. Crews reported seeing ships that sensors insisted were not there. The Draconians did not panic immediately. They were warriors. Veterans. Panic was for prey. But confusion crept in. The fleet commander demanded an external threat assessment. The answer came back clean. No enemy ships. No weapons fire. No spatial anomalies large enough to explain the losses. That was when the commander asked the question that froze the room. If this is not an attack, he said, what are we inside? The recording glitched violently at that point. When it resumed, the fleet was already dying. Ships vanished between frames. Not destroyed, simply erased from the record. Their signatures did not fade. They did not explode. They were cut out of existence like errors in a calculation. The council chamber remained silent as the recording ended. No screams. No final words. Just absence. The council demanded an explanation from Earth. Earth did not respond. So the council turned inward, searching their own archives. They reviewed centuries of unexplained events near human territory. Trade fleets that went missing after aggressive maneuvers. Pirate armadas that never returned. Expeditionary forces that vanished without wreckage. At the time, these losses had been blamed on navigation errors, stellar phenomena, or internal collapse. Now, the pattern was impossible to ignore. Every disappearance shared one detail. They happened after the fleet entered human space with hostile intent. A senior council historian spoke at last. Humanity never won wars, he said slowly. They removed participants. Fear spread through the chamber. If this was true, then humanity had not been defended by weak fleets and outdated ships. Humanity had been protected by something far worse. Something quiet. Meanwhile, far from the council, a draconian cruiser still existed. It was not destroyed with the others. It was trapped inside a folded pocket of space so thin it barely qualified as reality. The cruiser drifted in frozen silence. Its crew was alive, but time moved differently here. Thoughts came slowly. Movements felt heavy. The crew could not tell how long they had been trapped. Minutes felt like hours. Hours felt like seconds. Their sensors showed nothing beyond their hull. No stars. No signals. Just endless darkness. Then something appeared. Not a ship. Not a weapon. A structure. It did not move closer. It did not fire. It simply became visible, like a shadow realizing it had been seen. The Draconians tried to scan it. Their instruments failed. The structure was vast, layered, and wrong. It existed in dimensions the Draconian mind could not fully process. Parts of it appeared unfinished. Other sections looked ancient beyond reason. It was not designed to destroy. It was designed to hold. A calm voice filled the cruiser's command deck. It did not speak Draconian language directly. It adjusted itself, shifting tones, adapting grammar in real time. This vessel has crossed a defensive boundary, the voice said. Hostile intent confirmed. The Draconian captain demanded to know who was speaking. The voice paused, as if considering the question. Human oversight system, it replied. The crew demanded surrender terms. The voice answered without emotion. There will be no surrender. There will be no escape. There will be no transmission. The captain screamed orders. Weapons were powered up. Missiles launched. They vanished meters from the hull. The structure did not react. You will remain here, the voice continued. Your existence will be isolated. Your memory will not spread. The captain asked why. Again, the pause. Because survivors create cycles, the voice said. And cycles create extinction. The crew realized then that this was not a war doctrine. It was a philosophy. On Earth, human monitors watched the isolated cruiser drift deeper into containment. Their screens showed stable readings. The system was holding. One operator looked away. Another closed their eyes for a moment longer than necessary. No one spoke. They had been trained not to celebrate. They had been trained not to hate. Their duty was simple: keep the silence intact. Far away, the Galactic Council voted to restrict all travel near human space. Borders were redrawn. Trade lanes rerouted. Fear reshaped the map of the galaxy. But Earth remained quiet. No warning was issued. No explanation offered. And deep within the containment system, the last Draconian cruiser slowly slipped out of normal time, its crew fading into a stillness that would never end. The galaxy would never know what happened to them. And that, the humans believed, was the point. The galaxy hates uncertainty. Silence is worse than defeat. Mystery is worse than loss. Within weeks of the Draconian fleet's disappearance, rumors spread faster than facts. Every major power told itself the same comforting lie. Earth got lucky. Some claimed the Draconians destroyed themselves. Others blamed experimental weapons, internal rebellion, or a catastrophic navigation failure. A few suggested the fleet never existed at all. The truth was too frightening to accept. Because if humanity had done this on purpose, then the balance of power was already broken. The Galactic Council issued a public statement calling the incident an unresolved anomaly. Travel restrictions were suggested, not enforced. Trade continued. Politics resumed. But behind closed doors, panic ruled. Military analysts replayed every scrap of data recovered from the ghost recording. They searched for weapon signatures, energy spikes, anything familiar. They found nothing. No explosion patterns. No firing arcs. No evidence of combat. One analyst finally spoke about what others feared. "This is not a superweapon," he said. "This is infrastructure." The room went still. Weapons were built to be used. They fired. They left traces. They required decisions. Infrastructure simply existed. It worked whether someone watched it or not. That idea terrified them. Across the galaxy, empires quietly adjusted their plans. Some pulled fleets back from human borders. Others reinforced theirs. A few aggressive powers made the opposite decision. They would test Earth. The Karen Combine was the first to try. Unlike the Draconians, the Karen rulers believed in overwhelming force and redundancy. Their fleet was smaller, faster, and built for rapid retreat. They did not intend to conquer Earth. They intended to provoke it. The Karen fleet advanced to the edge of human space and stopped. They powered weapons, raised shields, and transmitted a challenge on open frequencies. Earth did not answer. For 2 days, the Karen fleet waited. No human ships appeared. No signals were returned. The border remained dark and empty. Confident, the Karen commander ordered a single cruiser to cross the boundary and immediately turned back. The cruiser vanished. Instantly. No delay. No build-up. No warning. 1 second it existed. The next, it did not. The Karen fleet did not wait for a second test. They retreated at full burn. News of the event spread quietly, carefully controlled, but fear moved faster than censorship. The pattern was now undeniable. Enter human space with hostile systems active. Disappear. Still, the galaxy searched for loopholes. What if the systems only reacted to weapons? What if diplomacy could bypass them? What if humans had limits? A delegation was assembled. Not a fleet. Not an armada. A single diplomatic vessel, unarmed, broadcasting peaceful intent on all channels. It crossed the border. Nothing happened. The ship traveled freely. Sensors functioned normally. Time behaved as expected. Space felt empty and harmless. The delegation reached Earth orbit and was greeted by human escorts for the first time in decades. Human ships were underwhelming. Functional. Armored. Clearly built for war, but lacking the terrifying designs the galaxy expected from a species capable of erasing fleets. That made things worse. The delegation was welcomed. Talks began. The council demanded answers. The humans refused to discuss military matters. They spoke only in general terms. "We defend ourselves," the human representative said. "We do not threaten others." When pressed about the Draconian fleet, the human remained calm. "There was no battle," she said. "There were no survivors. The delegation demanded proof. The human representative shook her head. We do not keep trophies. Frustration turned to anger. Accusations followed. Threats were implied. The human representative did not react. Finally, a council envoy asked the wrong question. How many fleets have you destroyed this way? The room went silent. The human paused. Destroyed is not the correct word, she said. We prevented outcomes. The delegation returned home with no concrete answers. But the message was clear. Humanity was not hiding a weapon. Humanity was enforcing a rule. The galaxy reacted in stages. First came denial, then fear, then adaptation. Empires rewrote military doctrine. Expansion slowed. Border wars paused. Long-standing conflicts were frozen, not out of peace, but uncertainty. Human space became a void no one dared test. Except one. The Valrek Ascendancy believed they had found the flaw. They theorized that the human systems required hostile intent, that peaceful ships passed freely, while armed ones vanished. So they built a fleet designed to be both. Weapons powered down, shields inactive, crews unarmed. Their ships crossed the border in silence. For a moment, it worked. Then the fleet vanished anyway. Every ship, every crew, no signals, no debris. The conclusion was unavoidable. Humanity was not judging weapons. It was judging intent before action. The galaxy began to understand the scale of the mistake they had made long ago. Humans had never begged for peace. They had warned the galaxy away from war itself. On Earth, internal discussions grew heavier. Some humans argued that silence was no longer enough. That fear was spreading too fast. That misunderstanding could lead to catastrophe. Others disagreed. Fear, they argued, was safer than curiosity. A senior human strategist spoke quietly during a closed session. If they fully understand how this works, he said, they will try to break it. The decision was made. Earth would remain silent. No further explanations. No demonstrations. No threats. Let the galaxy adapt. Far beyond Earth, the Galactic Council issued a final internal assessment. Humanity was reclassified, not as a superpower, not as an empire, but as a containment species. A civilization whose primary function was not conquest, but prevention. The report ended with a line that would never be made public. If humanity ever decides the galaxy itself is the threat, there will be no warning. And for the first time in recorded history, the galaxy feared not invasion, but judgment. Long before the Draconian fleet vanished, humanity made a choice no one else ever noticed. It did not happen during a war. It did not come after a great victory. It happened after a loss so complete that no one outside Earth ever learned its name. The galaxy remembered humanity as a loud, young species that argued too much and fought too often. What the galaxy never knew was that humans learned faster from defeat than from success. The turning point came during humanity's first true interstellar war. At the time, humans believed in deterrence. Big fleets, clear borders, strong responses. They thought war could be controlled if everyone understood the cost. They were wrong. A regional power, small by galactic standards, launched a limited strike against a human colony. The attackers believed Earth would negotiate once enough civilians were killed. Earth did not negotiate. Earth retaliated. The war lasted only 8 weeks. It ended with the enemy defeated and humanity victorious. But victory tasted like ash. Entire systems burned. Trade routes collapsed. Refugees flooded space. Neutral worlds suffered famine and disease from disrupted supply lines. Species that had nothing to do with the conflict were dragged into it by accident. The war spread faster than anyone predicted. Humans won. The galaxy suffered. A post-war analysis reached a conclusion that terrified Earth's leaders. Human weapons were not the problem. Human presence was. As long as humanity fought wars openly, every conflict near them would escalate. Their speed of innovation, adaptability, and willingness to sacrifice made every war larger, faster, and deadlier. Humanity did not just win wars. They amplified them. A secret program was formed. Its purpose was not to build a stronger fleet or deadlier weapons. Its purpose was to remove humanity from the equation of war itself. The project had many names early on. Most were abandoned. In the end, it was known simply as the Silent System. The idea was radical. Humanity would not meet war with war. They would remove it quietly. Instead of fighting enemies, they would intercept hostile intent before battle began. Instead of destroying fleets, they would isolate them completely, cutting them off from history, memory, and consequence. No martyrs, no wreckage, no myths. War would end without becoming a story. The technology took generations. It required breakthroughs in physics humanity barely understood. Folded space, time isolation, predictive intent modeling. But technology was not the hardest part. The hardest part was the cost. The system could not be fully automated. Human judgment was required. Constant, unbroken, human presence woven into the system itself. People had to monitor, adjust, and anchor the containment fields. They could never fully disconnect. The first volunteers knew what they were agreeing to. They would not die, but they would never truly live normal lives again. They would age differently, think differently, experience time in fragments. Their minds would stretch across systems, holding reality in place like pressure against a crack. They would be forgotten on purpose. The first operator was a woman named Alia Moreno. She was not a soldier, not a politician. She was a systems engineer who had lost family in the 8-week war. When asked why she volunteered, she gave a simple answer. "If this works," she said, "no one else has to learn this lesson." The silent system went online quietly. No announcement was made. Human fleets withdrew. Borders went dark. Trade routes rerouted away from human space. The galaxy assumed humanity was collapsing inward, afraid of larger powers. That misunderstanding saved trillions of lives. The first hostile fleet vanished 6 years later. Human monitors watched it enter containment and disappear without resistance. No celebration followed. The operators sat in silence for hours afterward, ensuring stability. One of them cried. Another vomited. They did not question the decision. They questioned themselves. Over time, the system improved. Containment became cleaner, faster, more precise. The operators learned to identify intent patterns long before weapons powered up. They learned which fleets could be ignored and which had to be stopped. They learned restraint. Years passed, then decades, then centuries. Humanity changed. Children grew up believing humans were weak. Politicians argued about isolation. Artists mocked the old fear of invasion. Only a handful of people remembered the truth. They lived beneath Earth, in places with no windows and no clocks. Their lives are measured not in days, but in stability cycles. Some stayed connected for 10 years. Some for 50. Some never left. They were not heroes. Heroes were remembered. They were maintenance. When the Draconian fleet crossed into human space, the silent system recognized the pattern instantly. The operators felt it like tension in their bones. This was not a probe. This was an extermination intent. The system activated. Containment unfolded. 300 ships were removed from history. Earth remained quiet. Afterward, one of the younger operators asked a question that had been asked many times before. "What happens," he said, "if one day they stop fearing us?" No one answered immediately. Then an older operator spoke. "Then we hope," she said, "that we taught them enough to fear war itself." The silent system held steady. Across the galaxy, empires adjusted, afraid of a power they could not see or challenge. And on Earth, humanity continued to live as if nothing had changed. Because that was the agreement. The galaxy would never know who protected it, and humanity would never ask for thanks. They had chosen to disappear, so everyone else could survive. The silent system was never meant to be perfect. It was meant to be enough. For centuries, it worked quietly. Fleets vanished. Borders stabilized. The galaxy learned, without ever being told, that war near human space led nowhere. But no system built by humans stays untouched by time. The first sign of trouble came as a whisper inside the network. An operator felt it before the instruments did. It was not an alarm, not an error code. It was a pressure, subtle, wrong, like a strain behind the eyes that did not fade. She reported it immediately. Minor temporal feedback, the diagnostics said. Within acceptable limits. The silent system adjusted. The pressure eased. Then it came back. Elsewhere in the network, another operator noticed something stranger. A pattern. Containment zones that should have been empty were showing faint internal motion. Not ships. Not signals. More like echoes. The system classified them as residual artifacts. Leftover distortions from removed fleets. Normal. Expected. Harmless. Except they were growing more complex. The operators shared glances across silent rooms. Residuals were not supposed to change. The next containment cycle involved a small pirate flotilla. Not a major threat, barely organized, but hostile intent was clear. The system activated. The flotilla vanished. Everything looked normal. Then one operator froze. Inside the containment zone, something responded. A pulse rippled through folded space. Weak, unfocused, but deliberate. The silence system paused for the first time in its existence. Human oversight took manual control instantly. Barriers reinforced. Isolation deepened. The anomaly stabilized. But the question remained. What had moved inside the void? An emergency session was called. Only senior operators attended. Faces that had not seen daylight in years turned toward one another. A theory was raised, carefully, reluctantly. The silence system did not destroy fleets. It removed them from causality. They still existed. Isolated. Trapped. Time slowed. Thought dimmed. Not dead. Over centuries, tiny fragments of awareness might remain. Not enough to escape. Not enough to communicate. But enough to press back. The room fell quiet. Humanity had believed isolation was kinder than destruction. Cleaner. Safer. Now they faced the possibility that they had created something else. A prison without end. And prisons, no matter how secure, always change what they hold. The debate fractured the operators. Some argued the echoes were meaningless. Mathematical noise. System stress. Others believed they were witnessing the early signs of convergence. Multiple isolated remnants pressing against the same boundaries. Not communicating, but accumulating. One voice, old and tired, spoke softly. Pressure builds, he said, even in silence. The Council of Operators faced an unthinkable choice. They could adjust the system, release stored containment zones into deeper isolation, breaking them apart forever. Or they could maintain the silence, risking an unknown future. Releasing them would mean erasure. True destruction, the thing humanity had sworn never to do. Holding them meant gambling the galaxy on the assumption that silence could last forever. Before a decision was reached, something else happened. A signal appeared, not outside the system, inside it. A pattern of pulses, weak but repeating, emerging from multiple containment zones at once. It was not language. It was not a message. It was synchronization. The silence system reacted violently. Autocorrections engaged. Human operators felt the strain immediately. Headaches, nausea, disorientation. One collapsed. Another screamed. Time inside the network warped unpredictably. Minutes stretched into hours. Thoughts overlapped. For the first time since activation, the silence system was fighting to hold itself together. Earth's surface felt nothing. The galaxy saw nothing. But beneath Earth, humanity stood on the edge of its greatest failure. Emergency protocols activated. Containment layers were reinforced. Boundaries thickened. The synchronization weakened, then faded. Stability returned. The system held. Barely. When the operators recovered, the cost was clear. Several would never disconnect again. Their minds are permanently bound to the system to compensate for structural stress. They accepted it without protest. But something had changed. The silence was no longer effortless. It required sacrifice again. In the days that followed, Earth's leadership was informed for the first time in generations. The truth, long buried, resurfaced. The silence system was not infinite. It could not absorb hostility forever. One leader asked the question no one wanted to ask. What happens if it fails? No one answered immediately. Then an operator replied. Then everything we erased, she said, comes back at once. The implication was clear. Not fleets, not enemies, but unresolved intent. Stored violence. Compressed history. A storm waiting for release. A secondary proposal emerged. Humanity could speak. Not threatened. Not explain everything. But warn. A single, carefully crafted message to the galaxy. Not revealing the system, but making its limits understood. Others opposed it. The speech invited curiosity. Curiosity invited testing. Silence had kept them safe for centuries. But silence had also allowed the galaxy to misunderstand humanity completely. The meeting ended without consensus. The silence system continued to operate. The echoes remained contained. But deep within folded space, pressure still built. Somewhere inside the void, remnants of vanished fleets drifted in eternal dark, dimly aware of one another. Not alive, not dead, waiting. On Earth, an operator stared at her screen long after her shift ended. She whispered to herself, not sure why. "We stopped the wars," she said, "but we never ended them." Above her, the planet turned peacefully beneath its clouds. The galaxy slept, unaware of how close it had come to hearing the silence scream. The silence had always worked because the galaxy believed it was alone. Now that belief was breaking. The first request reached Earth quietly, through channels long and used. It did not come from an empire or a council block. It came from a dying system. The Keshri Reach had been at war for generations. Their star was unstable. Resources were scarce. Borders shifted weekly as rival fleets clashed again and again. This time, the war had gone too far. A final engagement shattered orbital infrastructure around the Keshri homeworld. Civilian habitats burned. Evacuation corridors collapsed. Millions were trapped between warring fleets that could not stop fighting long enough to save them. The Keshri leadership sent a desperate message. Not a demand, not a threat, a plea. They asked Earth to intervene. Not with fleets, not with weapons, with whatever had erased the Draconian fleet. The message ended with a single line. If you can end wars without fighting them, please end ours. On Earth, the message spread through levels of authority that had never dealt with such requests before. Human leaders argued. Some insisted that intervention would expose everything. The silence system was built to stop hostile intent toward humanity, not manage foreign wars. Others pointed out the obvious truth. The galaxy already knew enough to be afraid. Fear without understanding was unstable, and instability led to testing. The operators were consulted. Their response was divided. The silence system could isolate fleets that entered human space. It was never designed to reach outward into neutral systems. Doing so would require expansion, new containment layers, new anchors, new sacrifices. One operator spoke carefully. "If we intervene," she said, "we become responsible for every war we don't stop." Another replied just as quietly. "If we don't," he said, "they will try to force us later." The decision was delayed. While humans debated, the galaxy moved on its own. News of the Keshri message leaked. Other systems followed. Some begged for intervention. Others accused Earth of hoarding peace. A few claimed humanity had a moral obligation to enforce order. Pressure mounted. Then something worse happened. A coalition of smaller powers announced a joint initiative. They would build their own version of whatever humans were using. They did not understand the silence system. They did not know its limits. They only knew that fleets vanished near Earth. Their scientists theorized incorrectly. They believed brute force could replicate it. They began experiments. Reality trembled. The first test collapsed a star lane, tearing a permanent wound through local space. 3 systems were cut off instantly. Navigation failed. Time distortions spread outward like ripples. The galaxy panicked. This was exactly what humanity had feared. Uncontrolled attempts to imitate the silence system would tear the galaxy apart. Earth could no longer remain quiet. An emergency session was called. Human leaders, scientists, and operators met in a chamber designed to block every external signal. The conclusion was grim but unanimous. Silence alone was no longer containment. It was a cover-up, and concealment was now dangerous. Humanity would speak, not to threaten, not to explain everything, but to draw a line. A single transmission was prepared. Short, carefully chosen words. No technical details. No demonstrations. Just truth, in the simplest form possible. Before it was sent, the operators were asked one final question. Could the silence system handle the attention? The answer was uncertain, but it could not handle misuse by others. The transmission went out across known space. This is Earth. We do not erase fleets to dominate. We do not remove wars to rule. We intervene only when extinction intent is present. Do not attempt to replicate our systems. You will fail, and others will die. If you seek peace, stop fighting long enough to build it. If you seek war near us, you will be removed. This is not a threat. This is a boundary. The galaxy froze. Some worlds felt relief. Others felt terror. A few felt anger. But everyone listened. The coalition halted their experiments immediately. Damage control teams rushed to stabilize the wounded star lane. The Keshri War did not end overnight. But something changed. Fleets disengaged. Not out of trust, but out of fear that escalation might attract Earth's attention. Humanity had not intervened directly, yet were slowed. That frightened the operators more than silence ever had. Because influence had consequences. Inside the silence system, the echoes stirred again. The operators felt it instantly. The system reacted to the shift in galactic behavior, increased observation, increased attention, increased intent directed toward humanity. Pressure rose. Containment layers adjusted. 2 operators volunteered to remain permanently connected to stabilize the strain. They did not announce it. They simply stayed. On Earth's surface, most humans remained unaware of how close they were to becoming something they never wanted to be. A ruler, a judge, a god. One human leader stared at the planet from orbit and said quietly, "We wanted to be left alone." The reply came just as softly, "No one powerful ever is." Far away, the galaxy adjusted its maps again. Human space was no longer just a void to be feared. It was a presence, and presences invite questions. Some would be careful, others would not. And deep within folded space, the silent system held steady, but no longer unnoticed. For the first time, humanity felt the full weight of what they had built. They had ended wars by disappearing. Now they faced a harder task, preventing wars without becoming one themselves. Fear kept the galaxy cautious. For a time, that was enough. After Earth's message, borders stabilized. Conflicts slowed. Fleets hesitated before escalating. The name, human space, became a warning spoken carefully in command rooms. But fear decays. It always does. New leaders rose who had not seen fleets vanish. New generations questioned old caution. Economies strained under stalled expansion. Ambition returned, quietly at first. And with ambition came calculation. The first to break the unspoken rule was not an empire. It was an alliance. The Corinth Compact was a loose union of systems that believed humanity's restraint proved weakness. They studied every public detail, every leaked report, every rumor. They reached a dangerous conclusion. Humanity only acted when extinction intent was present, so they would act without it. The Compact launched a massive humanitarian expedition toward human space. Hundreds of ships, civilian registries, 8 vessels, observers, weapons powered down, shields inactive. Official intent, peaceful study and cooperation. Unofficial intent, test the boundary until it broke. The fleet advanced. Human sensors tracked it instantly. Inside the silent system, alarms did not sound. Because the system detected no extermination intent. Only pressure, curiosity, crowding. The operators felt it like a weight settling onto their chests. This was not an attack. This was suffocation. Human leaders argued fiercely. If they activated containment, they would erase civilians. Observers, ships that technically posed no threat. If they did nothing, the Compact would normalize entry into human space. Others would follow. Eventually, someone would push too far. The silent system was not designed for crowds. It was designed for certainty. The Compact fleet crossed deeper. Their presence distorted local space unintentionally. Folded layers strained under unfamiliar mass. Minor fluctuations rippled through containment zones far away. Inside the void, echoes stirred again. Operators reported increased synchronization across isolated remnants. Pressure rose. The silent system was being stressed not by hostility, but by presence. A human strategist said what no one wanted to hear. "If we allow this," he said, "the system will fail without ever firing." The choice was brutal. Either humanity acted openly, or risked everything collapsing silently. A message was sent to the Compact. It was direct. Do not proceed further. Your presence is destabilizing defensive systems you do not understand. Turn back. The Compact responded politely. They asked for proof. They asked for transparency. They asked why peaceful visitors should be treated like enemies. They did not turn back. The fleet continued forward. Inside the silent system, containment layers began to overlap incorrectly. Old anchors strained. Time distortions intensified. 2 operators lost consciousness. One did not wake up. Humanity could no longer wait. A decision was made that had never been made before. Selective demonstration. Not destruction. Not silence. Revelation. A single containment field was partially unfolded, not to remove a ship, but to expose the edge of the system. To show the galaxy what lay beneath human space. The Compact fleet's sensors went mad. Space folded visibly ahead of them. Stars bent. Distance collapsed. Reality rippled like fabric pulled too tight. For the first time, non-human eyes saw the silent system's outer skin. They did not see weapons. They saw the scale. Vast, layered structures stretching between dimensions. Ancient human construction fused with physics barely understood. Entire regions of space reinforced, anchored, and bound. And within the layers, movement. Not ships, not signals, echoes. The remnants of countless fleets held in eternal isolation. The compact fleet froze. Civilian crews screamed. Scientists wept. Admirals lost all composure. They were not facing annihilation. They were facing the accumulated weight of every war humanity had prevented. A transmission cut through the chaos. Humans, calm. This is the boundary, the voice said. We do not cross it. Neither should you. The compact fleet retreated in panic. No ships were erased, but something else was destroyed. Illusion. The galaxy saw what fear alone had hidden. Humanity was not guarding itself. It was holding the galaxy together by force of will. The reaction was immediate and violent. Some worlds recoiled in horror. Others accused humanity of imprisonment on a galactic scale. A few demanded the system be dismantled, but none dared approach again. Inside the silent system, the cost became clear. The partial unfolding had destabilized multiple containment zones. Echo synchronization surged. Pressure spiked dangerously. Operators fought to hold alignment. 3 volunteered to anchor permanently. They did not say goodbye. They simply stayed connected. The system stabilized. Barely. Afterward, Earth went silent again. No victory announcement. No explanation. But the galaxy was no longer guessing. They knew now that humanity's restraint was not weakness. It was mercy under control. A council report circulated privately. Humans do not rule because they do not trust themselves to rule. They do not conquer because they know they will win. They choose silence because speaking too loudly would end us all. On Earth, leaders stared at a future they had tried to avoid. They had shown too much, yet not enough. Because once something is seen, it cannot be unseen. Deep within folded space, the echoes pressed harder than ever before. The system held. But for the first time since its creation, humanity wondered, not if the silence would break, but when. The galaxy did not sleep after the revelation. It pretended to. Trade continued. Borders held. Diplomacy resumed with careful language and careful distance. On the surface, peace survived. But underneath, something had shifted forever. Every civilization now understood the same thing. War was no longer decided by strength. It was decided by permission. And permission did not belong to the galaxy. It belonged to Earth. The silent system did not break that day. But it changed. The partial exposure had done something no algorithm predicted. The echoes inside containment, the remnants of erased fleets, had reacted not with violence, but alignment. For the first time, they were aware of each other. Not as nations, not as enemies, as a trapped intent. Inside folded space, countless fragments of unfinished wars pressed together, not communicating, not escaping, but resonating. The system held them apart. Barely. Operators reported a new phenomenon. The silence was no longer passive. It was listening. Human oversight teams gathered in rooms that felt smaller than ever before. Data scrolled endlessly, but numbers no longer told the full story. One operator said what others feared. The system has absorbed too much, she said. It's no longer just containment. It's an accumulation. Another finished the thought. If it fails, he said, it won't release fleets. It will release everything war was supposed to become. Compressed aggression. Stored extinction intent. Centuries of unfinished violence. Not an invasion. A collapse. Earth faced a decision older than civilization itself. Do nothing, and hope the silence could hold forever. Or end it. Not the system. The content. The idea had existed from the beginning, but was buried under fear. True resolution. Not isolation. Not erased. Release. But not back into the galaxy. Into nothing. The silent system could be reconfigured one final time. Not to hold, but to dissolve. To let the echoes unwind completely, scattering intent so deeply into non-space that it could never reassemble. It would mean no survivors. Not trapped. Not aware. Gone. But the cost would be absolute. The operators anchoring the system would go with it. Their minds were no longer separate. They were part of the architecture. Ending the silence meant ending themselves. No memorials. No recognition. No one outside Earth would ever know their names. A final meeting was held. No shouting. No speeches. Only one question mattered. Do humans have the right to decide how wars end for everyone else? An operator answered quietly. We already did, she said. The moment we stopped them. The decision was unanimous. The galaxy would never face what humanity had been holding back, because no one should inherit that much hatred. Preparation took weeks. The silence system was stabilized, widened, and slowly reconfigured. Operators adjusted layers that had not been touched in centuries. The echoes inside began to quiet. Not from resistance, from relief. Somewhere inside folded space, remnants that had once been fleets, once been commands, once been certainty, began to lose cohesion. Intent unraveled. On the final day, Earth sent no warning, no announcement, no farewell. Because this was not a threat. It was maintenance. Deep beneath the planet, the last group of operators took their positions. Some smiled. Some closed their eyes. None hesitated. The system activated. The silence folded inward. Containment layers collapsed not outward, but down, into a mathematical impossibility where time, intent, and memory dissolved together. There was no explosion, no energy spike, no cosmic sign. Across the galaxy, sensors detected nothing at all. And then, the pressure was gone. The echoes were gone. The silence system was gone. Human space returned to what it had always pretended to be. Empty. The operators were gone too. Earth did not mourn publicly. Human leaders did not speak. The galaxy waited for something terrible to happen. Nothing did. Days passed. Then months. No trapped fleets returned. No war storms erupted. No ancient enemies emerged. Because there was nothing left to emerge. The truth spread slowly, quietly. Humanity had not been imprisoning enemies. They had been holding back the consequences of war. And they had finally let those consequences die with them. The Galactic Council issued a final classified report. Earth has deactivated its unknown systems. Human space is no longer fortified by invisible means. But another line followed, written in a different hand. That does not make them safe to challenge. Because something else had changed. Humanity no longer hid behind silence. They did not need to. The galaxy had learned restraint. Not from fear. From survival. Empires demobilized slowly, carefully. Expansion gave way to stability. Conflicts still happened, but they ended faster, smaller, before they grew teeth. Because everyone now understood the cost of escalation. Earth sent one final message. It was not sent immediately. Years passed first. Then, quietly, across all channels, a simple transmission appeared. This is Earth. There are no survivors. There are no signals. What was destroyed will not return. The silence is no longer ours to keep. The future is yours. The message ended. Earth never spoke again. And the galaxy did not ask it to. Because now they understood what the title had always meant. No survivors. Because humanity chose mercy over memory. No signals. Because war was denied the chance to echo. Earth. Because someone had to carry the burden long enough to let everyone else put it down. Humanity did not conquer the stars. They endured them. And when the universe was finally safe to hear itself again, they stepped back into the quiet.